Cali X Boxing in the building. It is, what's today? Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. We've got a good show for you today. Going to talk a lot of things. But the thing we'll talk most is Showtime Boxing. It's confirmed. It's going away. It is going away. Showtime Boxing is going away. Saludos, Jesus M. No, there will be no Paramount Plus Boxing. As we've been stating for a while now, they're getting rid of it. Boxing will be no mas on Paramount. No mas. Gone. 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 Poof. Poof. It's gone. It's gone. You know, one of the things that makes a show like this difficult is you want to spike the ball a little bit. You want to do the I told you so but this was so obvious. It was so obvious. And you don't want to celebrate it too because 40 people are going to get laid off. That's not good. You don't want to see people get laid off, especially during the holidays. You don't want that to happen. But at the same time, for years, you point to this. You point to this product and you say, this is not sustainable. This is not a good product. This cannot last. It cannot last. This has to crumble. There is no foundation here. And you're called Hitler. You're called David Duke. You're called Tiki Torch guy. You got Tiki Torches in your closet. Say what you really want to say. Say what you really want to say. And I'm just telling you, like, this is not sustainable. And I dropped the videos in July after the second quarter earnings report and said, this is obvious. They're telling you what they're about to do. It's obvious. They're telling you we are cutting. We're going to merge Showtime onto Paramount Plus. There's not going to be a Showtime anymore. It's going to be a Paramount Plus app, but we're only taking programs that can carry their own weight. We are not subsidizing stuff that cannot make money. How many times have I told you about this model, the GoFundMe boxing model, to where we just fund this? And it's not making money. You look at the ratings and you're like, how in the hell is this making money? Frank Martin doing 100,000 viewers on Showtime Championship Boxing. You try to tell people everything of value is going to Showtime pay-per-view. So what you used to have on Showtime Championship Boxing is going to pay-per-view. What you used to have on Showbox is going to Showtime Championship Boxing. And what they're putting on Showbox, God only knows where that used to be. That's atrocious. And you're called all kind of names because they can't have the discussion. They can't have the dialogue. They have to run interference. How many times have I told you nobody is talking about this? And maybe I should save this till later on in the show. Shout out Chicano Prophet. Adios. Shout out Mantis. Bayern Munich. The Weasel is no more. And y'all make sure to vote in the poll. Are you going to miss the Weasel? Are you going to miss Steven Espinoza? Are you going to miss the smug smile and lawyer talk? Are you going to miss it? Showtime done with boxing. Not surprising after terrible pay-per-view that put on Robert Helenius versus Wilder, Raleigh versus Tank, Ortiz versus Ruiz. And I remember clear as day. What was it, a year and a half ago, they announced that fight. And I said, this is a terrible, terrible precedent that you're putting this on pay-per-view. You cannot put this fight on pay-per-view. You cannot put Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius on pay-per-view. And then they started to talk up Robert Helenius, right? They used to say, this dude's a real life Viking. I had no idea. Like I didn't know Vikings still existed. This dude is a real life Viking. You don't understand. This is a good fight and it belongs on pay-per-view. And if you don't get it on pay-per-view, then you won't see it at all because the only way you can see your best fighters fight now is if they fight on pay-per-view. So take your choice. But when I dropped that video on Twitter last year, my God, the pushback on that. That was the first time in my life I had to block people on Twitter because they're calling me all kind of names. Racist. All kind of stuff. for just stating the obvious. All I'm doing is stating the obvious. All I'm doing is telling you this isn't a pay-per-view level fight. That's easy, right? Simple. Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius is not a pay-per-view value fight. We should all be in agreement in that, right? If you want to pay for it, that's fine, but we should all be in agreement that that is a crappy pay-per-view product. No. Racist. And I remember telling you a couple weeks ago, I showed you the clip of Dan Rafael basically saying that anybody who's going to be cheering for Showtime Boxing's demise right now is just a miserable person. They're miserable people who just want to see other people be miserable. And that's the only reason that people would be cheering on the demise of Showtime Boxing. And you try to explain it to these guys who are in the beltway, right? Like these are boxing guys who do not get outside of their bubble, or they just carry weight for these other people who they know personally, or they want to be lapdogs so they can continue to get the credentials. Either or, it could be any mixture of that. It's not that. It's how many times, just as boxing fans, this is all we're saying. We're not pretending to be journalists. I'm not a journalist. I am strictly a boxing fan who creates content. That's it. That's all I'm doing here. Boxing fan. I'm not an insider. I don't know. I'm just a boxing fan. I'm just a consumer. I'm buying your product. So maybe you should take some constructive criticism, have thick skin, and maybe take a little bit of advice of what we'd like to see. We're funding the sport, correct? So maybe, just maybe, listen to us every once in a while. And I've explained to you another weird thing going on is when I say bad things about Top Rank, Golden Boy, Eddie over at Matchroom, take your pick, any of them. I don't get any flack coming back, or very little, very little. They have very few fanboys who will attack people personally when you attack their favorite platform. When you go after DAZN and say, this is a terrible year for DAZN. It's very rare I have a DAZN fanboy come at me and call me a racist or God only knows what. But when it comes to Showtime and PBC, boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. If you have any, just the least bit of detraction towards that group, boy, oh boy. It is like, it's like the wrath of earth is coming down on you. It's unreal. It's just unreal. So when that happens and people see this skirmish and they just see the dust come up, they just see you as a PBC hater, right? When in fact, all you're doing is saying, look, man, this model, y'all need to do better. Y'all need to get better. Y'all need to get better. And what specifically separates Showtime, PBC, from these other agencies, these other power brokers, is this stuff happens and the fanboys come at you, but you can tell how they're coming at you, where it's coming from. And Steven Espinoza has come at me several times on Twitter. Leonard Ellerby, I showed you that just Friday this happened. Again. And it's not even his fighters I'm criticizing. Again, race baiting. Espinoza, Ellerby. God only knows what Al Heyman is directing from behind the scenes. And you say there is a vitriol there for consumers of their product. And all we're saying is we want to buy your product. We want it to be sustainable. We want the best fights on our TV on Friday and Saturday night. That is it. That's it. That's our only motive here. And then you've got content creators going behind the backs of their fans. And they're interviewing these dudes. And you see some of them and they're saying, they get their knee pads on for Steven Espinoza, get on their knees and say, you guys are the Messiah, the saviors of the sport. Look at how great you've done in 2023. And you just want to grab them. Pay-per-view, 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 pay-per-view. We paid over $400 so far this year on Showtime products alone. Pay-per-view, and these dudes. And that's why I say, man, there's nobody representing boxing fans out here. So it's weird when you see it. People see it and then they call you a hater. They think you're some sort of hater or whatever. I'm just a miserable person. That's it. My wife tells me all the time, like, I see you screaming on your videos. You're such a happy person. Why are you that way here? All I'm saying, dude, is I want to see good fights on Friday and Saturday night. That's it. And then these dudes make it complicated where it doesn't have to be. It just doesn't have to be complicated. This is a simple thing. It's all so very simple. You can say the sky is blue, and these dudes will call you racist for saying the sky is blue, and they'll tell you it's green. Dude, it's not green. I'm looking at it. I am looking at it right now. I see it. It's blue. It's blue. Showtime boxing sucks. They need to get their act together. They're not going on Paramount Plus. It's not happening. And what I expect to happen is more of the same in the future, just on a different app. I'm sorry. Tyrese, appreciate the $1.99 super chat. PBC on Tyler Perry or Oprah Network for more drama. Shout out Tyrese. Appreciate the super chat. How many broadcasters turned their back on PBC now? HBO, ESPN, NBC, CBS, Bounce, BET, and now Showtime. The difference here, Nando, is there was an exclusive contract with a lot of money in the budget. From what I understand, like NBC, CBS, Bounce, those were infomercials. Basically, they're paying for those slots, so the network doesn't have to put anything up. They're paying for those slots, and then they get their money to cover the costs and advertisements. I think that's how it goes, and that's what the people are making a big deal about this NBC Sports and Boxer thing. That's the same thing. It's basically an infomercial, and you're putting on foreign fights here in America. They're basically just snippeting it from there. I don't think they're even going to have NBC Sports commentators there in the building. And they're going to take it, they're going to broadcast it here, and that's it. Foreign fights. I mean, if you think that's going to last, go ahead. But you're right, though. Like, look at how many networks they've been through. And like a cockroach, it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. So there are two positives to this, though. There are two positives. And I'm going to share some clips with y'all. But there are two positives that are going to come out of this. I'll tell you this right now. Number one, it looks like Steven Espinoza will be out of the sport. And God, I hope that's the case. Because once again, cockroaches, they seem to stick around. But I hope that's the case. I hope we never see Steven Espinoza after December 9th. We don't see him again. We don't see him doing interviews. Because I've explained how weird it is. How weird the PBC model is. It's not your traditional model in which the promoter goes out there and actively promotes fights. I've explained this to you why it's refreshing to see a Dana White out there saying, this sphere, it's beautiful. I'm going to put advertisements all over it. Mexican Independence Day. I'm going to throw the greatest combat sports event of all time in the sphere. Mexican Independence Day. It's refreshing to see that because it's refreshing to see combat sports promoters behave like combat sports promoters. They're out there promoting the event. You got managers that they're working with, managers of fighters who are managing certain fighters. And that's the way it works. But what's weird about the PBC model is you've got a promoter calling himself an advisor. He's promoting and managing fighters. He's got a shadow puppet promoter and a Tom Brown. And then he's got a network exec going out there and acting as his press secretary, not acting like a network exec, but acting like a press secretary, acting like a promoter and answering questions as a promoter when he's a network exec. It's a weird model. And you try to explain to people this isn't sustainable because people want to see a promoter acting like a promoter. They want to see someone out there explaining their policies away. Not hiding behind somebody, acting as a press secretary, explaining their policies while they don't do interviews. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. You try to explain it to people and you're called all kind of names. All kind of names. PBC still holds NBC's all-time record for lowest rated primetime show. I believe it. I believe it. Fight TV has to be a dark horse. 95% of their business model is pay-per-view. And they've sold PBC pay-per-views off and on. Most recently, Canelo. Canelo killed HBO and Showtime. Not sure what that means. Let me try to get up here before I go to these clips. I got laid off the day before Christmas once just to avoid giving holiday pay. Believe me, dude. Believe me. In my 20s, back in my 20s, I was laid off several times, and I hate to see it. The two things you don't do, two things you should not do in corporate America is you don't lay people off on Friday evenings. I've been laid off on Friday evenings. And you don't lay people off before the holidays or around the holidays. Been laid off around the holidays. So I know it. And that's why that's where my heart is. And that's why, you don't cheerlead too hard. I don't want people to mistake that. I feel bad for the 40, even if these are dudes who have come after me personally on Twitter. I feel bad for the 40 dudes that are going to get laid off. I feel bad for them. Some of them will land on their feet, some not, but you feel bad for those people. You don't want to see that. And it was all so avoidable. It was all so avoidable. Be careful of this narrative that's going to be pushed. Be careful of, times are just changing. Times are just changing. Yes, times are always changing. But guess what? You have to adapt. You have to adapt. I can't give the dude credit because I forgot his name, but I think his name's Raph. But he was explaining this 4 years ago in 2019. He's like, dude, they're in trouble. Showtime is in trouble. Why are they in trouble? They're still citing Nielsen ratings. They're in the caveman era. They are not adapting. What are they doing? He's citing this 4 years ago. And you watch them run this model and you're like, how is it ESPN is doing much smaller fights than them for much less budget, and they're doing 8 times the ratings? That's one of the times Leonard Ellerbe flew off the top rope at me. And you say, how is this sustainable? How are they going to do this? How are they going to do this? But people are going to blame all kind of different things for this, and they're not going to point people to the real problem here. And the real problem is you have to adapt, and it's been a crappy model from the beginning. Showtime has been putting on terrible events. Showbox level events have been on Showtime Championship Boxing. Showtime Championship boxing events have been on pay-per-view. And God only knows what we've been watching on Showbox. God only knows. But network, this is the two positives. Number one, hopefully Steven Espinoza goes away because he's one of the big reasons this is happening. They're going to point to times are changing. Times are just changing. No, man, you should have adapted. And if you would have adapted, you'd be on Paramount Plus instead of looking for a platform on DAZN or Amazon. You'd be on Paramount Plus because you'd be getting the ratings. You'd have a profitable model. But they're not because they suck. Their model sucks. Their product sucks. And they made their bed with network exclusivity. And that's my second point. The other positive that could come from this, other than the weasel scurrying along, is network exclusivity is a cancer in boxing, and we need to get rid of it. Network execs, network presidents should not be saying, okay, I'm going to lay in bed with one promoter. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be PBC over there on Showtime, Top Rank over there on ESPN, Eddie and Oscar over there on the... No. I hope, and I'm going to play some clips here in a minute because I think I see this coming from a mile away. I hope PBC ends up on DAZN. Why? Because Eddie, Oscar, Al may be forced to work together. I want more network execs instead of seeing them do interviews, because I don't need to see interviews from the network execs. But instead of seeing them behave like promoters and do interviews and be up all up in the videos. I want to see network execs in the boardroom saying, bring me your fights. Eddie, Oscar, Al, bring me your best fights. Compete. Let's see who gets on. Let's see who brings me the best fights. Work with this budget. Work within this budget. Let's make some fights. And then if the network exec who knows boxing, we need network execs who know boxing. If they say, look, man, I want to see this guy. I want to see fighter A versus fighter B. Al, you got fighter A. Oscar, you represent fighter B. Get in that boardroom. Don't come out until the fight is made. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. It'll give us better fights on a more consistent basis. It'll be more sustainable. And we'll see more networks stick around as a result. Hopefully anyway. HBO and Showtime used to do this all the time. All the time until they laid in bed with certain promoters. And now we got what we got. It is what it is. I want to play this clip right here. Let's start off with this. Actually, let's do this. And I didn't even put this on here. Let me try something real quick. Hold on one second. Y'all give me 1 second. Let me upload these right quick. Get this one on there. And then let's get this one on there. Okay. So this is the news of the day. Right here. Paramount Global to shut down Showtime Sports Network will no longer broadcast boxing. So this is the news of the day. Boxing Scene has confirmed that Paramount Global, the Paramount company of Showtime, and Boxing Scene will eliminate Showtime Sports as a department altogether. So this is the second one. This is the one I want to read. Paramount Global's decision was based on the company focusing exclusively on scripted programming moving forward and eliminating budgets, blah, 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 blah. And it will eliminate 40 employees in Showtime Sports starting December 29th. The network has 2 more boxing telecasts, and they're done. Showtime Boxing has 2 more. You'll see them 2 more times, and they're out. November 25th and December 9th. We've talked about the November 25th pay-per-view. Will be headlined by David Benavidez and Boo Boo Andre, which is an atrocious pay-per-view. And this is what we're talking about, right? This is how bad the product has become to where David Benavidez is fighting Boo Boo Andre headlining a pay-per-view. And by the way, people keep praising PBC and Showtime as well for stacking undercards for pay-per-views now. And that's one thing they'll go to, right? Is the main event's not your typical pay-per-view main event, but the undercard is stacked. There's a reason they're stacking the undercards now, fellas, is because they don't have dates. They don't have anywhere to put the fights except on the undercards of the pay-per-views. That's why they're stacking the cards. Casino's Michelob Ultra's arena in Las Vegas. The fights in sight for the December 9 show have not been determined. So they don't know who's going to be on the December 9 show. We had the fake news guy spread the fake news that Tank was going to fight Keith Thurman there on December 9th. And of course that got debunked like the next day. Much like the guy spread the fake news about Canelo fighting Carlos Adames, which is still hilarious, by the way. But this is what you got. That's it. And we've been wondering, look, what's going to happen with Showtime Boxing? Is Paramount Plus going to honor the contract that was going to go through all the way through 2024? Or are they going to buy out the remainder of the contract and say, look, we're just done here. You know, this sucks. Your product sucks. This isn't making us any money. We're losing money. We're bleeding here. You're done. And we explained it to you, dude. It was obvious in July. If you read the earnings report, if you saw the dividend get cut from 24 cents to 5 cents, if you saw them go through almost $6 billion in cash the past couple of years. When everybody is trying to sit on cash, they're burning through it. And they're telling you there's a specific metric we need them to hit in order to keep them around. And they're not hitting it. They're not even coming close to hitting it. They're telling you, look, get ready, brace for it. It's done. It's done. But this is the funny part. And this is where we start to have a little fun with it at the expense of some people. And my apologies for that. But this is Father of the Year, Boxing FOTY on Twitter. And he says, when PBC, and he did this was 2 weeks ago. When PBC goes to the zone and they raise the prices again, PBC fans going to say this, watch. The zone is much more than an app. It's a service. Source for, what is that word? Regalement and enjoyment for diehard fans of sports. Not just boxing, is definitely worth the cost to me. I can't wait. And this is the funny part, is you've seen the PBC dudes for years. What have they done? These guys over there on an app? Dead Zone? How many times have you heard them say Dead Zone? How many times have you heard Leonard Ellerby say, those guys are over there on an app. We don't fight on an app. And then Floyd ends up on an app. And then Canelo's fight gets picked up overseas by DAZN on an app. Canelo's fight with Charlo. You're like, uh-oh, okay. And then I see this right here. I saw this on Friday, Saturday. Let me present this to you. Share screen. Let me get this up. Share screen. And this is according to Boxing on X or Twitter, whatever they call it these days. And he's showing this guy, KO Artist Sports, on YouTube. And that guy is interviewing our favorite person, right? Steven Espinoza. And I like according to Boxing, although he's running some sort of weird campaign out there. Shout out to him. Good dude. He's running some sort of weird Canelo's ducking Bud campaign out there last week. And I think that's why he showed this video. But I said to myself at the time, people are missing the point of this little 30-second snippet here. And let me play it for you.
Canelo was clear about saying Crawford is not in the plan for the next two fights. I know you were talking to me about Crawford and Spencer, still trying to figure that one out. So if he's not in the plan, I mean, who else other than David, right? Is it David and then maybe a rematch if you're a loser? I mean, what's the Canelo game plan look like?
You know, look, there's a lot of options. There's Bivol out there. You know, there's some mandatories. I know that, you know, maybe fans aren't most interested in or excited about, but sometimes those are obligations.
Canelo.
So what name did he bring up there? What name? And did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? Confirm that y'all heard that clip. But what name did he bring up there specifically, and who else did he allude to? So he brings up Bivol. In the mandatory, one of those mandatories could be a Jaime Munguia. What app are those two fighters on? And this coincides with what I talked to D-Style about 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, you know, the rumors were running rampant, and D-Style's like, there's much to see about nothing. They're just going to go on Paramount Plus, and it's going to be business as usual. And that same day, I'm telling D-Style, Eddie Hearn is out here saying that, look, I know for a fact that Al Heyman is talking to other platforms about putting his product. Where would Eddie Hearn hear that from? Eddie Hearn's with DAZN. Eddie Hearn would hear that from his sources in DAZN who would be telling him, hey, you might have a bunkmate here. You might have somebody moving in. You better get ready. And Eddie Hearn would probably react two different ways about this. One is, I better get ready. I better get my stuff in order. I better start making some fights. I got some more company over here. Network exclusivity is going out the window. Oscar's here with me already. Al might be here with me already. Competition is a good thing. I better start working. The other part of this is he's probably laughing his ass off at the same time because he's probably like, this whole time they've been calling us Dead Zone. This whole time they've been calling us a dying app over here while they're on Showtime getting no ratings, and now they may be moving in. Shout out Edwin Castillo, $2 super chat. But it's the minstrel monster. Been a duck ass. He loves that. Edwin loves calling him the minstrel monster. Been a duck ass. Appreciate the super chat, Edwin. Amazon Prime will be a great platform destination for boxing, but we need anyone but PBC to run the show there. So here's the thing with Amazon. And from what I hear, like business dudes will tell you, and what doesn't add up with this is I've heard Amazon in their quarterly earnings report saying they may cut some sports. So you say, okay, if they go to Amazon, what's the budget going to be over there? Either way, what I'm hoping happens here is the main thing, network exclusivity goes out the way. I hope ESPN comes along when this top ranked contract ends, I think 2026, and says, everybody bring me your best fights. We're going to work with everybody. We're going to stick around. We're going to work with everybody. We're going to work with everybody. I hope this reset, what it does is two things. And this is going to make their heads explode. Number one, I hope it gets fighter pay in check. Oh my God. Oh my God, Calix, you can't say that. You want fighters to get paid less? Oh my God, you are so anti-fighter. You want fighters to get paid less? All I'm telling you, dude, is do you think that Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis, and God bless him, man, like, God bless both of them. Go get your bag. And Regis Prograis is from right down the street. I'm a fan. But do you think that's a $10 million fight? $9 million fight? You have to get it in check. It has to be a pay scale that's good for everybody involved, all the competitors. It has to be sustainable. And if you're paying this fighter type of money, somebody has to pay for it. Somebody brought up earlier in the chat, free boxing for all. Remember that? And free boxing for all, sure as hell, is expensive now. What's the Zone charging now? The Zone got away from pay-per-view until they didn't. And the price of the brick went up. And the price of every brick is now up. And we're getting less quality at the same time. Less quality, less fighters fighting, more money. Okay. I don't like that. How do we fix that? Network exclusivity, get rid of it. Fighter pay, let's get it in check. It's fine. But you say this stuff, fellas, and you're anti-fighter. You're anti-boxing. You're a hater. You're Hitler. You got tiki torches in your closet. You stormed the Capitol on January 6th. All this stuff. For just pointing out that the sky is blue. It's not sustainable. No other sport is doing this. Did y'all watch any of the Misfits boxing over the past weekend? Did y'all watch it? Any of y'all watch it? Don't feel ashamed. You can say it in the chat if you watched it. Once again, I talked about how Dana White is refreshing because he's actually out there promoting events. Like really promoting events. I mean like really promoting events. Really promoting undercards. And I'm watching Misfits boxing. I'm watching Thursday and Friday before, and I'm seeing these dudes, they're throwing stuff at each other. I think Logan Paul got cut. They're doing all kinds of, Tyson Fury's dad is mooning somebody. They put like a plexiglass in between fighters and they're like banging at it. They're shaking the whole thing. And people are laughing at it. Like, oh, look at this circus. This isn't going to stick around. This is terrible. Look at this. Look at this. It's boxing dudes, right? Like the hardcore boxing dudes. I'm saying these dudes are promoting. They're promoting themselves. Jake Paul's already announcing his next fight pretty soon. Logan Paul's already talking about fighting again. KSI is talking about who he's going to fight again. They're calling fighters out. They're calling other people out after the fight. There's tag team boxing after the fight. They're calling out people in the crowd. People in the crowd who want to fight him are showing up and yelling at him after the fight. And I'm like, this is the type of chaos that we need. This is combat sports. The WWE stuff works. They're actively promoting themselves, promoting the event, promoting future events. And people are getting emotionally invested in it. And it's shocking to people when they wake up Monday morning, they see reports of Tommy Fury versus KSI, who I don't even know who he is, But they're seeing this, and it does 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. And they're wondering, how is this happening? This is so terrible. It's so terrible. And I'm like, dude, it's going to stick around. I don't know how popular or big it's going to be, but it's sustainable because it stands on its own. It stands alone. These dudes are getting paid whatever they generate. They're promoting themselves. They're opening the market up. These dudes are selling all kind of products at the event, after the event. They've already had people invested in themselves before they even step in the ring. So people are naturally emotionally invested in these dudes. And Tommy Fury saw the bag. Tommy Fury's like, cruiserweight? Real boxing? What is that? No, whatever. Tommy Fury said goodbye to the projects. He said, I'm going over here. Check y'all later. I'm going to go fight Jake Paul, the Disney kid. I'm going to go fight the KSI guy, whoever that is, with the bad hairline. Peace out. See y'all later. I'm going to go fight some 8-round events. And now he's the face of boxing. He's the face of boxing now. He's doing 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. And look, I say that facetiously, of course, because we know Canelo's that dude. Canelo could go fight Jake Paul tomorrow, and he's not going to do it, which is the reason we like Canelo Alvarez, right? He could go fight Jake Paul tomorrow and do like 5 million gazillion pay-per-view buys. He's not going to do it, though. He's going to fight real fights. He's the face of the sport, the face of boxing. But it's funny because when Tank versus Ryan happened, and Ryan jumped through every single obstacle to get that fight. Yeah, you got to, 136, 10-pound rehydration club, blah, 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 blah. Ryan's like, well, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And they keep jerking this chain, and he ends up there, and they fight the fight. And then they start all applauding each other, patting each other on the back because they made this fight. And it does what they said it did 1.2 million, whatever. And they start calling Tank the face of boxing. So now it's funny because Tommy Fury, Fredo Fury does $1.3 million pay-per-view buys, and those same dudes are quiet. And he did it without Ryan Garcia. And that's why you try to tell people. Dudes think that Tank Davis is that dude now. And Tank Davis, he's going to show up. He's going to roll out of bed and do 1 million pay-per-view buys going forward. And you're trying to tell him it's not going to work that way. It's not going to work that way. When you talk about Ryan Garcia, you're talking about an exception to the rule. That dude is going to do buys. That dude, once he exhausts whatever he can exhaust in boxing, whatever talent he can get out of himself, however many fights he can get out of himself for real boxing, he'll go over there and go fight Misfits boxing too. And he'll do a ton of buys. Why? Because before he even stepped in the ring, people are already emotionally invested in him from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. He's already opened the market up. A lot of those buys came from Ryan Garcia. So for the Tank Davis fans out there who are praising the Leonard Ellerbys, the Steven Espinosas, the Al Heyman, Showtime Boxing, that whole platform, you try to warn them, dude, this isn't sustainable. They're going to have to do something different going forward. They can't revert right back to fighting Isaac Cruz, Hector Luis Garcia, Raleigh Romero, which is still, dude, it's still hilarious. I was thinking about this last night. I just started laughing. It's still hilarious that dude has a belt. That dude has a belt at 140. They're talking about that Italian dude that was fighting Janabek at 160, how bad he was. Well, Raleigh is worse, and Raleigh's got a belt at 140. They handed that dude, they did everything to hand that dude a belt. Everything in their power. Because they knew that dude was going to mess it up. They knew it. Somehow they get him up there to fight Ismael Barroso, who is 87 years old. Get him up there in the rankings. We're going to fight for the belt. The real belt. Not the fake Pinocchio belt that Tank has. The real belt. You're going to be a real boy. And then he fights, and he's messing it up. He's messing it up. Ismael Barroso, fresh off of the Apocalypto movie set, is beating him. And he's beating him soundly. And then for the first time in my life, I see a punch exchange in which fighter A is soundly beating fighter B in this exchange. He lands like 4 punches as opposed to 0 punches. And fighter A is counted out. Fighter B gets a stoppage over fighter A. It's amazing. It's amazing. They handed this dude a belt. It's incredible. It's incredible. Who's going to tell him in the chat who Avni Yildirim was a mandatory of before that guy dropped the belt on the scale? Who's going to be the one to break the news to him? And who's going to be the one to break the news to him that he fought Avni Yildirim like 6 weeks after one fight and 9 weeks before the other fight? But this is one of those shows where some dummies are going to end up in the chat. But very interesting to see how this plays out. And it will be, man. It will be. But I hope positives come out of this because this was coming. This was coming for a while. The smart people in the room saw this from a mile away. And the smart people in the room were called all kind of terrible names for pointing out the obvious, right? But the two things that I hope come from it is we never see Steven Espinoza again. He goes away. Let's see him go away. And the second thing is network exclusivity exits the door with him. And look, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Steven, network exclusivity, peace out to both of you. Go. We don't want to see you anymore. We want to see ESPN saying, Al, you want to come work over here too? Eddie, come over here. Asker, come over here. Start competing. Let's get some real competition in here. DAZN, look, Bob, you want to come over here too? Let's go. Let's do it. I want to see all of them competing against each other to get their fights on TV. And that's how I'll get my fights on TV on a more consistent basis. That's how I'll get a sustainable product. But for you dudes out there like the Leonard Ellerbys of the world who have been calling DAZN dead zone and saying your fighters will never fight on apps. The reckoning is here. And for the PBC fanboys out there, it's a tough day for you because you have to figure out what to do. You have to figure out which direction to go in. You could do one of two things. You could say, look, man, my bad. It's a tough day for you because for years you've been saying the zone is dead zone. Apps are apps. We don't fight on apps. Our fighters don't fight on apps. We got the real. We got Showtime Boxing. You see how great Showtime Boxing is doing. Showtime Boxing is giving us the greatest boxing year in a half a century. We're saying, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. This is not a special year. Sorry. I was looking at it the other day. The top 10 pound for pound are going to fight again 13, 14 times this year. Same thing as last year. How are you having a special year while doing that? You're making some good pay-per-view fights. We're paying extra for them. Other than that, what are you doing? How is this a special year? This is the greatest year in 20, 30 years of boxing, and Showtime is leading the way, and Tank versus Ryan led the way. And they'll have you believe that Tank versus Ryan actually led the way, and all these other fights are being made because of Tank versus Ryan. It's not the case. It's not the case. They will brainwash you into believing anything. And the reason they want to brainwash you into believing that is because they want to show you how great Al and Steven and Leonard are. And those guys know how to run smear campaigns and they know how to run brainwashing tactics. And they have to work overtime constantly. It's why they look so insecure. They have to run overtime constantly because they can't defend their product. They have to smear people. They cannot defend their product. They can't defend their policies. They can't do it. They can't do it. Showtime was a terrible product, and that's why Showtime's leaving. Yes, there were headwinds. Yes, the market's getting tougher for everybody. But some stay, some go. Why is that? The caveman people who cannot adapt, they leave. They leave. The people who have terrible products, they leave. Remember Strength Shoes? Strength Shoes. Y'all remember that? Any basketball players in the chat? Remember Strength Shoes? They had you going out there, and believe me, I was a basketball player. I did this myself, and I destroyed my lower legs doing it. They had you with a platform up here, running around jumping with Strength Shoes on. Because people believed that it would build your calves and make you jump higher. And then they go away. Water beds, gone, because it's a terrible product. People realize how bad they are for your backs. People realize how bad Strength Shoes are for you. People realize how bad Showtime boxing is. It couldn't adapt. It's gone. Bob Arum has been here for how many years? How many decades? 60, 70 years? God only knows how many years. How many things have changed? How many recessions has this dude been through? How many different platforms has this dude been through? And he's still here. Why? He's got a good product, sustainable, he can adapt. He's not above criticism. We criticize Bob. Nobody calls us racist when we do it. He's not above criticism. But that dude, 92 years old, still doing it. That dude can put together a sustainable product. And if he can no longer pay a fighter, says, all right, man, let's go. Let's go. I got 6, 7 other ones already coming up the pipeline in my minor leagues. I got a farm system. I got mid-level fighters. I got prospects. I got contenders. I got champions. Peace. Go over there and get overpaid. Maybe you'll be back. That's it. That's it. Good products stay. Bad products leave when the market changes. And that's why you're seeing Showtime Boxing leave. It's because Steven Espinoza is terrible at his job, and the PBC is a terrible product. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to break this to you. I know there are going to be some stands still out there. I know there are going to be some dudes out there saying they're going to miss Steven Espinoza. Steven Espinoza did a great job. Al Heyman is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. All this stuff. Got news for you. They suck. Sorry, they suck. I don't know what to tell you. Lack of quality control will kill any business. And that's what I'm saying. Appreciate that, Nando. If you don't control the budget, if you don't have a boxing guy in there willing to hold the feet to the fire of these power brokers, the power brokers are going to rape and pillage the whole village. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to drain all the resources. They're going to protect all their fighters. They're going to put them in bubble wrap. They're going to put them in this artificial aquarium-like atmosphere, environment, until they can no longer protect them, and then they get destroyed. Example, Errol against Bud. Example, Jamel against Canelo. They get destroyed. Example, Fulton against Inoue. They get destroyed. But quality control has been terrible. The product has been terrible. And it's gone. It's gone. And hopefully there's a message, a warning shot to guys like Eddie, Oscar, Bob. Get on your game. Get on your game. Because y'all's contracts aren't forever. You got contracts coming up in a couple of years too. Get on your game. Don't wait till the last minute to try to please these people. Don't wait till the last minute to try to make fights that are going to make money. Get out there and work. Get out there and actually promote events. Be a promoter. For the love of God, boxing promoters, promote fights. Don't paper everything. Update your websites. How many times have I told you? I've been on PBC's website, Showtime's website, and they don't update their websites. They don't update their fight schedules. I got to go to Dan Rayfield's fight schedule. I got to go to Bad Left Hook's fight schedule to see when PBC fighters are fighting. I went to Morrell Jr., went to the PBC's website to see what time Morrell Jr. is fighting. And the fight 4 days before the fight isn't on the PBC schedule. Promote. Do it. At least do that. At least pass out some pamphlets in Commerce, California around the tennis courts and say, hey, Sebastian Fundora's fighting here this weekend. He's exciting. You might want to see him. Mexican-American. There's a lot of Mexican-Americans walking around here. Maybe, just maybe, some of you can stroll in. Instead, there's like 5 people there. What the hell is this? All raping of resources, all short-term thinking, no long-term thinking. And now they're shocked about where they're at. Or maybe they're not. I don't know. But their fans surely are. And it's going to be funny to see how they react to this. It's going to be funny. Are they going to start to praise their zaddy Al Heyman, for finding a new platform in DAZN? And if they do that, they have to praise DAZN, who they were just calling Dead Zone. Just like they're in quite the conundrum right now with Canelo Alvarez. For years, flat-footed. Yeah, not all that good. He's ducking all our fighters. He went over there to Beval to duck our fighters. And then Canelo comes over to PBC. And he beats Charlo, and now they're starting to claim him as a PBC fighter. So it's tough sledding going forward for the Showtime PBC stands, man. It really is. They're going to have a tough time for them. Make sure that you're saying prayers for them. If you're Catholic, say a couple decades of the rosary for them, because they're going to have a tough time dealing with this. They're going to have a tough time if their zaddy has to go over there on Dead Zone. Leonard's going to have Leonard specifically is going to have a really tough time with his fighters fighting on Dead Zone. Imagine if Tank is fighting on Dead Zone in 2024. Good Lord. I can't wait. I can't wait to see Leonard's interviews trying to promote Tank on Dead Zone. Just like, did you see Leonard the day before? It was a couple days before Canelo fought Charlo, and he's out there. He's just praising Canelo, and he's just, he's shaking Canelo's hand, and Canelo knows. Like Canelo sized everybody up, but Canelo's just pleasantries, and then Leonard holds his hands and does that hug, and he's like hugging him a little too huggy, right? And Leonard's really like Leonard, that dude right there. He's a slippery one. But he'll criticize people, and then he'll maneuver in. When it's the right time, though. Sanch taking my victory lap. The Weasel is finished. Shout out my guy Drew. And Drew's been saying this for years. Drew's been saying this. If you go back and see the receipts, he's been saying this before anybody else was saying it. I got to give him credit. I go back to see. I went back in the drafts today. I was searching on Twitter or X, whatever Elon's calling it, and looking for Drew's conversations that I remember him having with people from the PBC Showtime cult a year, 2 years ago, and they just disappeared. The tweets are deleted. And that's what I'm telling you, man. People are going to have a tough time with this. They're going to have a tough time with this because Showtime was not going away. It was not. I remember Drew having the conversations with them. This is what the earnings report says. This is what they want to see. They're not going to see that. It's going to go away. They're calling all kind of racist names. They're going to have a tough time dealing with this. They're either going to have to act like it didn't happen, go back and delete tweets, or they're going to have to say, yeah, my bad on that. And oh, by the way, they got to be DAZN cheerleaders now. They got to figure out who DAZN's network exec and start getting on the knee pads and slurping him off. much like they did with Steven Espinoza. This is the greatest network exec of all time. How do I know that? Why? Why do I know that? Because, he's working with Al Heyman. Of course. He's got to be a genius. He's working with Al Heyman. He's got to be a genius. Got to be the greatest network exec of all time. I want to see how this plays out with them, too, because the zone, Dead Zone. They were calling this Dead Zone, fellas. Dead zone. Apps? We're doing apps. Imagine if Eddie went to Amazon, what they'd be saying. Oh, you're getting fights with your packages? Getting fights with your packages? Look at Eddie over there. What a joke. Al does it, though. Al goes over there. Amazon. It's the greatest deal of all time. And if you don't say so, you are Adolf Hitler. If you don't say so, you were storming the Capitol on January 6th. That's what we're dealing with here, fellas. For me, like I said, like I always tell y'all on here, we always talk about, we just watch how the landscape moves. We deviate. That's it. We'll call them all out. It looks like we might be PBC haters over here because of the vitriol coming from the other side. We'll criticize Top Rank. We'll criticize Golden Boy. We'll criticize Eddie. We'll criticize Al. But when we criticize Al and Steven and Leonard, boy, what comes back at us is something different. And what I'm saying is I feel bad for the 40 people being laid off. I do. During the holidays. Been there. I don't like that. But there's a reason they're being laid off. The quality sucks. Dana White has been talking about it for a while now. And you need to listen to Dana White instead of doing this. We sort of have a Napoleon complex. We have a complex in boxing to where only us as boxing fans can criticize other boxing people and criticize boxing. But when somebody outside of boxing does it, they get to be saying the same things we're saying, but we have to criticize them for saying it. And what I'm saying is listen to Dana. I was watching college football over the weekend, and as soon as a play is over, 1 second over, I get the replay. Dana's been telling you this for years. The announcers suck. The quality's going downhill. Quality control. Once again, quality control. It's not just the fights, it's how they're presented, it's how they're promoted. The epilogues have gotten worse. I don't care what anybody says. They've gotten worse, especially since the HBO days. They did it perfect. The commentary has gotten worse. The pre-fight commentary specifically, if you look at the press conferences, if you look at the weigh-ins, have gotten significantly worse. You get playbacks, replays way after you should be getting them. It used to be, I can listen to the footage of the trainer talking to his fighter, giving him specific instructions, that trainer, and then replays, and you get all the good replays, and you get that within 50 seconds. And then they show the fighters get up, and they show the fighters move on. Fight the next round. You don't get any of that anymore. Quality sucks. You should have listened to Dana White. You should have took his advice. And I'll say this too. If it sounds like people are gloating about this, if it sounds like people are doing victory laps and spikes, there's reasons that people are saying this stuff. And it's not because they're miserable people, because some of the people saying this I know personally, and they're good people and they're happy people. I consider myself a happy person too. Dan Raphael is wrong when he says that. The reason people seem happy that Showtime Boxing is going out the door is maybe, just maybe, we'll get something new here. Maybe, just maybe, there'll be some sort of reset here. That's good for boxing fans. We've been telling you for too long that we're carrying too much of the weight now. We're carrying too much of the burden of this sport. And when we do that, some promoters, some outfits either listen or act like they do, or just quiet. But other ones, Showtime, PBC, Mayweather Promotions, come at you with all kind of vitriol. And that may be your answer as to why some people seem happy right now. See y'all tomorrow on D-Styles channel. God bless. Peace.